Akumu, are you going to be vegan?
Claire, are you going to learn Greek?
Yeah.
For me, hell yeah as well.
Yeah.
But can we say yes to everything?
Oui.
No.
Yes. Sí. Yeah.
Sindio?
Kabisa.
Yeah, let's see. It depends on what they give us and if we can handle it. I mean, but if we can handle veganism, we can handle anything, right?
We can handle it. You can't say no because we are
the Yes Girls!
Hi, Yes people. We are the Yes Girls. You're joining us for episode 2 of the Yes Girls podcast in Nairobi, Kenya, on this pretty grey day that started off quite rainy. But even in rain, we see opportunity, optimism, a chance to say yes to getting caught in the rain and then warming up with a hot mug of cocoa. We all dream of becoming more considerate humans, more skilled professionals, more world-savvy connoisseurs. But how often do we say yes when opportunities arise?
We, the Yes Girls, two Nairobi-based wanderlusters, are making it our mission to say yes to doing, being, and learning something different every 2 weeks and documenting our journeys. This podcast is a result of us saying yes to sometimes challenging, sometimes fun, sometimes entertaining, and sometimes downright outrageous experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, legome, akumu, heropoli.
Akumu, shouldn't we explain what this episode is about before going all Greek on our listeners?
Well, yeah, I was so deeply into this Greek thing, it's just hard to break out of it.
Well, at least translate.
Okay, guys, it means I am Akumu.
And I'm Claire.
And together we are
the Yes Girls. Now we can tell people what to expect from today's episode.
So now I can say, yeah, legome, because that's the best intro I can think of for today's episode. Yeah, legome means, hello, my name is Akumu, in Greek. Yes, Greek. And the reason I know how to say that and a lot more is because this is our second episode and we said yes to learning Greek.
That's right. We lived and breathed Greek for 3 whole weeks, trying to get to grips with the basics of this ancient language. And at the end of our crash course of language learning, we had to pitch the Yes Girls in Greek.
I can't believe we even thought of this as a challenge.
I know.
Like, seriously? And we set it to ourselves.
Yeah, no one made us.
And we did indeed. We recorded, we videoed, and we documented our experiences to share everything with you, the whole world, and extract some important lessons about language learning, pronunciation, and
Greek food.
We're talking about what comes out of your mouth, Claire, not in.
Okay.
So, just a little bit of research that we've done about this. So, learning a language is one of the most useful and unique skills you can have. Honestly, it's useful because it gets you around in a foreign country if you're traveling. It gets you a job that has a language requirement. It lets you understand things when you're ordering in an exotic restaurant. And it's unique because language learning actually increases the size of your brain.
What?
Yes, that's right. It increases the production of your gray matter. You know the snail-looking thing on your brain when you look at a diagram.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that becomes a lot more. And yeah, language learning makes you literally brainier.
Wow. Okay. But it's got to be said that learning a language is often harder than we expect, especially when we don't live in the country where that language is the common form of communication. It takes determination, and no matter how much you study, there are limitations to how well you can learn a language. Now, it's proven that if you don't start learning a certain language before the age of 7 years old,
Seriously?
you will never speak like an absolute native.
Like totally never.
Never.
What?
So, yeah, some people may be better at accents than others, right? And they can imitate the native accent. But certain hardwiring in the brain just can't be undone after that critical age of reason. Do you remember hitting the age of reason?
Yes, I do.
That was a scary time. 7. I just want to forget about it. I had all sorts of new realizations came to me. Did not want them.
And sadly, that's when you you can learn a language perfectly.
Yeah. Before then.
Anyway, so there are three main theories relating to language acquisition. So there's the nativist theory, the social cultural theory, and the learning theory. So I'll say that again. The nativist
Please.
theory,
The what?
the nativist, like
Nativist.
natives, nativist,
Uh-huh.
and then the social cultural theory and the learning theory. So I'll start with the first one. So the nativist theory is from the school of thought of the great but somewhat outdated linguist called Noam Chomsky.
Love that guy. Legend.
So he said that all humans are born with universal grammar, which means that we are born with an innate ability to understand any potential language and express ourselves in it. So that's the first one. The second one is the socio-cultural theory, and it posits that it's a desire to interact with the world and the people around us that gives us the impulse to learn a language. And the third is the learning theory. So that one is pretty self-explanatory. It just says we learn a language in much the same way as we learn any other new skill, through positive reinforcement, repetition, or copying. And that's and that there's nothing innate about it.
I mean,
Which one do you relate to the most?
I mean,
don't know.
I could see for and against of all of these. And even in the research, I was seeing things that say, well, this can be disproven by saying this. You could prove or disprove any of them. But I think it's a combination for me.
Exactly. It can't be all black and white.
No, exactly. Yeah. But definitely of those three theories, we're really focusing on one of them here, right? That's the learning theory. Because, let's face it, we weren't born and raised in a Greek environment. And whatever universal grammar we had doesn't involve the same cases and genders that Greek does. And we don't actually have a single Greek person in our immediate day-to-day entourage to provide the impetus to learn Greek in that, what was it, the socio-cultural theory?
Yeah.
So it had to be something else, the learning theory.
So all that being said, we took our learning theory to town.
Woo!
So we gave ourselves just 3 weeks to learn the basics of this language, which happens to be one of the world's most ancient languages, and it's still pretty much the same as it was 1,000 years ago. Can you imagine, like, your mother tongue being the same 1,000 years back? Like, so Greek has the longest documented history of any living Indo-European language, and it spans at least, wait for it, 3,400 years of written records.
Wow. I wonder if I have ancestors that far back. And they certainly weren't writing in any language. I'm pretty sure they were just eating their own hair or something.
Exactly.
So we also found that today it's the mother tongue of 13.5 million people. So it's definitely not a minor language by any means, right?
Yeah. So the rules were this. We had 3 weeks to learn Greek in any way we could. So whatever means we could have to use. And then we had to prepare an oral pitch of the Yes Girls podcast to a friend of ours who lives in Greece, who knows nothing about the podcast. So we wanted to see how much he would understand us when we actually pitched in Greek.
This seemed like a good idea at the time, didn't it?
Yes. And then it ended up being just wait and see. So we could use whatever tools, as I said, whatever help and whatever people we wanted in this challenge. And one thing was for certain, we had to use just one word. And that one word was, Claire?
That one word would be, of course,
yes!
Cool. Before we get into our experiences, or rather your experiences to start with, of the 3 weeks, how would you describe your 3 weeks in 3 words?
Mine would definitely be, what the hell? Seriously, what the hell in terms of pronunciation, wording, everything. Like, I couldn't understand what I was seeing. I couldn't explain how to pronounce it.
Don't get into too much detail yet. Just give us one more sec. Wait, so you said you were literally shouting that?
Yes.
Okay, so like all caps.
Exactly. What all caps, THA, actually, not THE, just for emphasis.
What the hell? Hashtag what the hell, people. If you're learning Greek, please feel free to use that hashtag.
And you?
Okay, I'm
3
not going to
words.
shout mine. I'm going to be gentle with mine. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Because the only thing I've ever listened to as much as my Greek lesson podcasts is Bridgeton, people. I'm not normally a repeat customer or repeat listener. I like variety. But here there was so much repeating going on just by necessity. Bridgerton, that was out of choice, admittedly. No one forced me to rewatch that, but I'll listen to and rewatch that as much as I like.
Okay, so I want to hear more. I want to hear how much the repeating worked. So, do you think you can kick us off by telling us more about your 3 weeks, Claire?
Okay, you asked for it. I'm not going to promise this will be good, but let's go. People, I want to start with a disclaimer. I have a first-class honours degree in modern languages from a pretty decent university. And yet, I did not go into this challenge particularly confident. I've not exactly learned Swahili or excelled at learning Swahili despite living in Kenya for over 5 years now. Now, I would say that this is more of a lack of putting in the time, not just because I'm not capable of it. And that was my main worry here, actually. Would I have the time to dedicate to really getting into a language? So to start with, I speak fluent French and Spanish. But the only way I could really get fluent in my Spanish was to live in a Spanish-speaking country for a year. 3 weeks compared to a year, it's a little bit different.
Exactly.
And even after 10 years of studying the language at school, at university, on city breaks to Spain with my family, I still couldn't say I was fluent until that total immersion, right? And I knew I wouldn't get that with Greek for obvious reasons, not just because we couldn't really travel internationally, but also we're in Kenya. Like we said, we're not surrounded by Greek influences at all.
Yeah.
So I did what everybody does in this case, or so I thought. I turned to Duolingo. Yeah, we're not sponsored by Duolingo. Okay, just a disclaimer. So yeah, Duolingo, in case you don't know, is the free app that everyone was raving about a few years ago when it first launched, and with the aim of bringing language learning to the masses for free. So I downloaded the app and thought, well, that's half the work done already. Wrong. One thing I did like about Duolingo is that it really gamifies language learning, right? So there's these really bright colors. There's funky little multiracial cartoon characters that clap and cheer you at the end of every round of questions, really gamifying it. There's like game show noises that play every time you learn a new word or practice a sentence structure. And I did enjoy that. And it became a little bit addictive. So here's a short audio diary of me telling my partner, Saxo, that I'm learning Greek to explain the funny noises coming from my phone, rather, when we were at home and just chilling on the sofa after work. So here's that after one of these particular days. So if you hear some odd things coming from my phone, it's because I'm trying to learn Greek. Something what?
Funny.
Something funny.
You want playing a game.
Yeah, I guess it is a game. But it's to learn the language. I don't know if you heard one of the noises at the end of the clip there, but that was nothing compared to the trills and trumpets of Duolingo when you use it for a whole week. I highly recommend it if that's your sort of thing. So when I wasn't on the sofa chilling and using my Duolingo app, I had to find other ways of learning. Okay, I couldn't just do that because that's very much reading. There's no interaction, no speaking, and very little listening. So I've spoken about this before, but I spend a lot of time running. And the great thing about running is you can let your mind wander, at least in my case. And I usually listen to podcasts or audiobooks on long runs.
Yeah.
It's a great way to get through a book in a short space of time. And I can cover like half a book or 3 episodes of a podcast on a typical weekend long run. But instead, for these 3 weeks, every run, I was listening to Greek language learning podcasts.
What kind?
Just the basics. It was a free one I found on the App Store. They'd play little interactions and then dissect it and repeat the words, teach you a little bit about the history of the language and the culture. There's always a like a native Greek person and then a foreign person who's, the voice of the learner, right?
Yeah.
I think it was called Greek Pod 101 if you want to.
Yeah.
You
I think I
recommended
used it. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, you recommended it, so I checked it out. So I'd listen to that on repeat over and over and over again. I think I listened to every episode about 3 to 4 times each.
Mm-hmm. Did
And
it
yet,
work?
honestly, I still felt like I was learning everything afresh each time I listened. Like, it just wasn't sticking in my brain. I think one of the reasons is I am too much of a visual and oral learner for that. So just listening wasn't getting me very far. I'd remember random words. The most random words were the ones that stick with me. So the word that really always comes to my head is the word for dress in Greek. Now, in what context am I really going to be talking about a dress? But that's the one that really stuck with me.
So the random words you're remembering, did you also know the meaning or they were just random? I mean, dress, you knew the meaning. Is there any other word that you remember that?
Well, like
made
that
sense?
word, and then words that I like the sound of, like nice to meet you. Sounds lovely.
Okay.
Like dress is forema. It's
Oh,
a nice word. And I
Yeah.
also just imagined that I was dressing a girl called Emma. So the dress is
For
for Emma.
Nice.
And then hieropoli is nice to meet you. It just sounds pleasant on the tongue.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, let's just listen to a little clip where I'm talking about how the issue of just listening wasn't getting me very far, especially when it came to the alphabet. Because then when I went to try and look at the words on Duolingo, for example, they were just two clashing words. And I really struggled with that right from the beginning. So let's have a quick listen.
So I just needed to take a pause from this YouTube Greek lesson, which is going through the sounds. And I'm sorry, but who invents a language where the letter V is pronounced N? Two different ways of pronouncing N, but it looks like the letter V. I mean, come on. And there's a letter that is pronounced ps. Like, I don't know, guys. This is gonna be a tough one.
So I'm guessing you also struggled with that?
Definitely.
Yeah. So this really came to bite me in the behind when it came to preparing the pitch. I really just didn't know where to start. Like I said, I just remembered these random words, but couldn't really string a sentence together.
Yeah.
So I did whatever anyone does when they're in a quandary, which is
Google Translate.
Yeah, turned to Google. Now, again, we're not sponsored by Google, but I did use the Translate app to translate an expertly written Yes Girls pitch into Greek. So I wrote it in English. It was a lovely pitch in English. It would have worked perfectly. And then I started listening to the lovely Google Translate lady reading my pitch again, over and over and over again, and then trying to repeat it. But she was so damn fast.
At least you had that luxury.
Well, it wasn't much of a luxury because I tried to follow the words on the screen and I just completely lose it. Each sentence melded into one word.
Yeah.
So in my head, when I said it along with her, I sounded great. You know, like when you sing in the shower.
Yeah.
When you're just talking, I thought, wow, I've got this, right? I can just repeat it. And another issue was, so Google Translate is a great app. It's pretty accurate. I've tried it in languages that I speak fluently to see how it compares. And it is, pretty foolproof. It's advanced so much since the days when I was at school. And
exactly. It's gotten better.
Yeah. People would use it to translate essays back in the day in school, and it was just laughable. But one word of warning is when you use the listen option to listen to the text in Greek, you can't pause and then restart. So you always have to listen to it from the beginning. So the first phrase is, I knew really well. But then by the time she's got down to the end and I've been trying to keep up and I've lost the bit where she is and I'm trying to pause it at the words that I just don't understand, and you just can't.
So you did the whole text. You didn't break it down.
That would have been a much better idea. Maybe we should be comparing notes more along the way of these challenges, but we kind of try to operate in silos so that we don't influence each other too much.
I had problems of my own, trust me.
I think if there's one thing that learning Greek has taught me, it's that I am even more ashamed of not having learnt Swahili or put more time into learning Swahili. Because I live in Kenya, I don't really speak very good Swahili, and yet I'm here in Kenya learning Greek. I mean, my Greek still isn't as good as my Swahili, but it's been, 2 weeks now since we've been learning Greek? So I think that is definitely something that I will take away from this. I will get back to my Swahili, because I see it doesn't take that long just to at least develop some bases. Sure, I'm not fluent. Sure, I wouldn't be able to have a conversation, but I've grasped a lot of the basics that took me a long time to get in Swahili.
I won't get into the actual pitch yet because that we'll get into that later. But yeah, that's where I'll leave it in terms of my actual learning experience. So I'm not very proud of myself, but I'm excited to hear how your experience went, because we did compare notes a little bit along the way.
Yeah,
but
we did.
we try to encourage each other, but not try and follow the same paths, so that
Exactly.
we have experiences we can compare. So now I want to hear about you, Akumu. Tell us, how was your Greek language crash course over 3 weeks?
So my Greek learning was pretty tough. I mean, I think you went in without confidence, you said?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Massive lack of confidence.
Funny enough, I went in with quite a lot. Because I mean, I taught myself Spanish some years back, so I was pretty confident that, I have a language brain and I can do this. I also think I think I'm a naturally a language person. I mean, my mom says I began talking before my 10-month older sister. So I just believe my brain was meant for languages. So considering this, I went in with confidence.
Confidence is good.
So my strategy for learning Greek would be simple, and it was simple. So I did use a language learning app, not Duolingo though, for obvious reasons. And then I would use YouTube videos. I would use music. I would use podcasts. So I began with YouTube and mostly basic stuff, saying hi, saying your names, saying thank you, the basics, the things anyone who's going to a new country wants to learn. So I found those new words and phrases really easy. So I was feeling like, yeah, I can do this. So they were easy to learn, easy to pronounce, but difficult to remember. That was a problem. So I used some association, connecting new words with those I already know. So it was a little trick that I used since I was little, and I was using it to kind of remember some languages. So this is me. Excited me after my first lesson. There are 2 ways to introduce yourself in Greek, and I just learned them. So the first one is Gia, legame akumu Fiona. And the next one is Herete, legome akumu Fiona. One of them is formal, one of them is informal. I'm not sure which one you say the first name only and which one you don't, but let's just go with it. I like the Herete one. Herete, legome akumu Fiona. Especially because I try to remember things by associating them with other words that I already know. So with herete, I just think of heretics. Don't ask me why, but that's what came into my head. And if I think of heretics, then I remember herete. And the next one is legome. It looks like legumes. So that's how I remembered it. So herete, legome akumu Fiona. Yes, it was fun. First lesson.
So really, we did follow a similar path in that word association thing, like forema,
Yes.
forema,
Forema,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely strongly believe that, especially when you're having a lot of audio prompts, but you're not
Exactly.
looking at the word, right? It's easier to do that word association.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the first and second week, I also made use of tactics that would bring my subconscious mind into action, like doing and listening to something passively. So I'm not sure it really works, but part of me thinks it does. So what I did was I listened to like Greek music while doing something else consciously. So I have this feeling that, when you do such stuff, your subconscious is still working on that.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, so I was playing Greek pop music in my while working. So my theory is that doing this helps the mind helps the mind get used to listening to the language and hearing it. So it's like a twist to the tactic that Dexter used in the now famous Omelette du Fromage episode.
You're gonna have to tell me and the rest of the world, well, certainly me, what that is.
Okay, so Dexter was this kid who was really smart. He had the lab, so it was called the Dexter's
Dexter's
Lab.
Laboratory.
Yeah,
I
that
used to watch that.
cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this episode where he wanted to learn French of sorts. I can't remember the exact episode, but I remember he slept while listening to a French tape, and the French tape was saying omelette du fromage, continuously. And then he woke up and he became an omelette du fromage famous person.
But that's all he could say.
That's all he could say. But so it was so interesting. So I used the same idea, and I thought, while I'm working I can listen to, Greek pop music. And the funny thing is that I couldn't understand anything. All I kept thinking about was that it sounded very Arabic and very Indian at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very strange.
But that is proven. I mean, from my language studies, I do know that, we mentioned that you need to start learning a language before the age of 7 to really speak it like a native. But even to be able to recognize and differentiate the different sounds, I think it's before the age of 2 that you need to be exposed to those sounds. There's something called the phonemic map. Makes me sound clever. Don't know exactly what it means, but it's basically that your brain can map out those sounds. So like in English, we've got the difference between E and I, which someone who's not native English speaker could struggle with differentiating.
Exactly.
So if you want your child to have a good chance of learning any language in the future, while they're sleeping or in the womb or eating, I don't know, doing whatever babies do, you can just play these sounds from other languages to increase their chances of being able to differentiate. They won't be able to say them necessarily, but they'll recognize the different sounds. So there's some reason behind your madness.
Nice.
in
But
this
sadly,
instance.
with age, that possibility closes in the brain.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think it does any harm.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're just listening to omelette du fromage.
Omelette du fromage. Actually, I can't even remember what it means in French. I think
Cheese
omelette with
omelette.
cheese, right?
Cheese omelette.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So days later, I thought I'd use a new strategy: learning with a Greek podcast. I think the one I gave you, I told you about. So I was doing that while working, and I was doing it over and over again. So it was survival phrases in Greek, and I guess it worked. It's just that the same as you, I couldn't remember most of the words. So here's a clip of me talking about that after trying it out. I'm trying a new strategy of learning Greek, and that is I'm listening to a podcast with survival phrases as I work, and I'm listening to it over and over again. So I think it's working because my brain is collecting that information. As long as I don't do work that is too taxing to my brain. Yeah, so I just shared that with Claire. So let's see how it goes. So far, it's going pretty good. Efharisto parapoli, that is thank you very much. And yes, paracoli. Wait, what is paracoli again? I forgot. Anyway, I know Andy is saying ciao. So yeah, let's see how much I learned today while I do other things. So after learning the basics, as any traveler would, I thought I needed to bump things up a bit, learn more than just phrases. I thought I'd use now learning apps. I had used Duolingo before when I was learning Spanish, and I thought it would not be ideal since I had used it for a long-winded strategy. Like, Duolingo starts from basics, and then by the time you get to sentence construction, it's like you have to be at level 10 or something. So I thought I couldn't use that this time. So I needed something faster. So I thought I'd try maybe some of Duolingo's competitors, Rosetta Stone or something, and maybe something would be a little different. So here's me talking about me using some of these apps. Yeah.
So it's about 5:45, and today I'm thinking of trying a couple of apps that will increase my fluency faster than just learning new vocabulary. So I think since I have very little time to learn Greek, I will try to see how I can construct sentences. Yeah, I think that's faster than trying to learn words that I might never use. And since our challenge is coming soon, I need to be able to construct sentences. So that's what I'm working on from now on. I just downloaded a Rosetta Stone and one other Greek learning language app. I'll let you know how it goes.
So I don't think the apps worked too well. I felt quite inadequate in terms of sentence construction. Like I said, I think the apps are used for long-winded strategies when you're learning for like 3 months or more. So I mean I know I can know all the vocabulary possible, but if you can't really create sentences, what's the point? Yeah.
Interestingly, I also struggled with Duolingo because, like, I knew some very random words. Like, I could say the supermarket is pink, or I mean, we'll share some on social media. Some of the phrases they make you construct, like the bug eats an
Exactly.
apple,
Yeah.
and I knew the words for that pretty well, but I actually didn't even know the word for please, or I didn't know the
Exactly.
word for how are you. Or
So
the
it's
phrase.
very strange because when you go to YouTube to learn Greek, they start with the everyday phrases, but these apps don't.
Yeah.
So it's
There's a logic to
understand,
it, but
yeah.
like you say, maybe that's better for a long-winded strategy and not just for learning it in 3 weeks, which we'd put this crazy timeline for ourselves.
Exactly, very ambitious. So the days started running out and I had one thing left to do. So like Claire said, I turned to Google.
Woo! Savior!
But I also had to teach myself some grammar rules because I felt like, okay, if I go to Google, I think I can try and learn a bit of the, the sentence formation and all that stuff. With so little time left, I thought the best thing would be to find out the pronunciation rules. That took me into a rabbit hole where I wanted to learn more and also got to learn more, but I also didn't. So Greek, first of all, is written in strange letters.
Okay, strange because they're not familiar to us.
Exactly.
We're not criticizing
I'm not saying
Greek.
they're strange. They're just strange to me. And the main stress in the words is not very crystal clear. It's not like Swahili where it's always the syllable before the last that's stressed. So you can't really predict the pronunciation of a word. In Swahili we say baba, mama, Kiswahili. You stress the second last.
There's a pattern.
There's a pattern to it. But for Greek, this is what one study says. Like it'll show you just how difficult Greek is. First, stress in Greek cannot be predicted on the basis of phonological structure alone. Rather, stress placement depends on a complex interaction between morphology, phonology, with morphology playing the most important part. Second, primary stress must fall on one of the word's last 3 syllables. What? Finally, each word has only one stress syllable. Greek has only one level of stress. Wow. Do you even understand any?
Well, I understood that Greek has only one level of stress, but it probably caused you many levels of stress.
Definitely, lots of stress. So yeah, Greek is difficult. So going into the final challenge, knowing the challenges I had gone through with the language, I only had one friend left, as I said, Google Translate. So I constructed the presentation in English and then used the loving support of the app. The problem was I ended up rewriting the English script with the actual pronunciation words and not the actual words. You understand?
And then like writing it phonetically the way it's said, not the way it's actually written.
So I wrote it phonetically. And in Greek, those two are very different.
Yeah.
Totally different. Not like Spanish or Swahili where written words are the same as pronunciation words. So once I had rewritten everything in terms of pronunciation, I couldn't really go back and listen to the pronunciation with the lady.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you do that, I kept getting, oh, this is Hungarian.
Oh,
this is
yeah, because
Slavic.
it wasn't any language.
It wasn't any
It
language
was
at all.
Akumul's personal Greek
Exactly.
transcription.
So Google Translate was confused. So I was like, oh shit,
Mm.
now I have to use memory.
You broke Google.
Yes, exactly. I think the algorithm is a bit confused by now. So the presentation with the tag, I was flying blind. I was using memory to pronunciate. And it was fun, but difficult. Anyway, all in all, how would you rate your performance?
Oh, yeah, I didn't give myself a rating.
Yeah.
I know last episode I was pretty generous with myself and I was pretty cocky, but this time I'm the opposite. I went in with very little confidence and I came out with even less confidence. I'm glad I did it, but I would probably give myself a 4 compared to what I think I'm capable of, or what I
Okay.
thought
Okay.
I should be capable of.
Okay.
Yeah, a 4 out of 10.
Damn.
Can't go higher than that.
Then I think I'm being very generous. I've rated myself 6.5.
Okay.
Mainly because of the challenges and because I knew I could do much better. So it's the same reason as you, but I'm kind of putting myself like 6.5, which is kind of generous.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, next we can look at the actual pitch that we did to Tag, who's our contact on the ground in Greece, and see how he rated us for our pitches. So, the pitch day, the big pitch day. In the startup world, this is an exciting time where people get on a stage, they dress up, they prepare their elevator pitch, they've got their slides. All we had was a Zoom link and, like I said, our contact on the ground, Tag. Now, Tag is a friend of mine who used to live in Nairobi, and he's probably one of the most interesting mixes I've ever met. He's Danish Ecuadorian,
Wow.
but has lived in France and I think Belgium, studied in Belgium, but then moved to Kenya. And his wife is also from from Madagascar, but grew up in Europe.
Damn.
Fantastic. But he also has lived in Greece for almost half of his life, is fluent Greek, has Greek children. And so he was going to be our judge.
Our expert, yes.
Our expert. And so why don't you tell us, Akumo, about how he structured the pitch? What was the aim?
Okay, so the aim was for him, first of all, for us to see whether he can understand us because he knows nothing about the podcast. And then also for him to just test how good we are in pronouncing because anyway, I mean, we kind of cheated a bit with Google Translate. But the idea was first the structure, the pronunciation, and if he could understand us.
Yeah, that would be the litmus test.
Yes.
So as we listen to a few bits of your pitch, Akumo, you can maybe tell us how you experienced it.
Okay, so like I said, I was flying very blind. So, I mean, it was pretty good because my memory of pronunciation seemed to work. I mean, I was a bit nervous, but he seemed to understand much of it. What I did, like I said, I split, I cut everything out into statements such that it was just easier to even read and go through it, such that my brain was not overwhelmed while I was reading it through in the call. So I think that helped, and even just using my memory to pronounce, listening, remembering that YouTube lady in that Greek channel.
Why don't we have a listen to one of the highlights, one of the best bits of your pitch?
Okay, I'll continue. I'll continue, and then maybe you'll understand. So, η βασική προπόθεση είναι προκαλούμε τον εαυτό μας κάθε δύο εβδομάδες σε κάτι νέο.
Good. You're challenging yourself every week to something new. The two of you. Great. Good job.
Σαν πως προκαλέσαμε τον εαυτό μας να είμαστε τόσο κακοί στο να προφέρουμε ελληνικές προτάσεις.
Okay, so you're challenging yourself to be so bad in pronouncing Greek sentences, yeah, and things. Good, great.
Ζητούμε συγγνώμη που
Ναι.
είμαστε τόσο άσχημα σε αυτό.
That's sweet. You apologize for being so proud by this.
So yeah, Claire, how was yours? How was the pitch for you?
Like I said, I took a bit of a different approach to yours. I maybe tried to be a little bit too ambitious. So I wrote a whole fancy pitch, probably worthy of like the Global Entrepreneurship Summit.
Yeah, it was a bit fancy. Wow.
It was fancy.
Super fancy.
But it was unnecessary. So it meant that my text was way too long. So I was trying to read it really quickly, like the Google Translate lady, which obviously was a recipe for disaster.
I think you had 200 words and I had 100, right?
Yeah, exactly. Mine was double the length. And it overwhelmed me in a way that I could have avoided. So we can have a quick listen to me maybe struggling to pronounce some of the words or just get a whole sentence out without choking on my own tongue, and then Tage trying to understand what I just said and a little bit farcical.
Βλέποντας ότι άλλοι έχουν όλη τη διασκέδαση
Yeah, so by seeing that everybody else is having fun, not, yeah.
Και όχι μόνο επειδή δεν έπατη αυτή τη λέξη με 3 γράμματα, αλλά αντίθετα έπατη την ευκολότερη λέξη με 2 γράμματα.
What's that? Is that a riddle for me or something?
Yeah, well, it was saying about a 3-letter word.
3-letter words, yeah. And I will choose a 2-letter word instead.
Yes, exactly.
That's good, you're good.
Overall, Tage was really a great judge. He was very patient. He repeated back in English everything that we'd said in Greek to confirm that he'd actually understood it. And I definitely felt the validation that we'd actually said something in Greek with him just listening with no text prompts or slides, and he could actually understand what we'd said.
Yeah, that was impressive.
After our pitches, he knew what the Yes Girls was about.
Yeah.
That felt good, right?
Mostly from your side, your 200 words.
Well, that's just
they said a lot more.
And why don't we listen to the verdicts that he gave us? So I gave myself a 4. You gave yourself a
6.5.
6.5. Let's see what he gave us.
So,
yeah,
you did both really well. Really, really well. In fact, I understood everything. It was just the pronunciation. And if I have to score you, I will score an 8 to Akumu and a 9 to Claire. And to be honest, Akumu had better pronunciation than Claire, but that's because Claire is Muzungu. So there will always be that handicap. But Claire had been a better student. She had a more sophisticated discussion. But it was really good, girls. And you really challenged yourself. And as you can see, I mean, you made yourself understood. So your next challenge is to do it live. I'm inviting you to Greece, to Athens. So when you come, you can actually put it into practice.
Yeah.
So as you can see, he pretty much agreed with our judgment calls of ourselves that Akumu definitely had better pronunciation. Mine was more sophisticated, but therefore my pronunciation went down the toilet. But he was much more generous with the scoring than we were.
Yeah, but why do you think the pronunciation was maybe different?
I think because I favored quantity over quality.
Mm-hmm.
So you really focused on getting each word out in a really clear, conscientious manner.
Mm-hmm.
So you took your time over it, whereas I did what I always do in life, which is rushing through things, just trying to get it done and thinking more is better, which is not always true, people. Sometimes less is more.
But it was more sophisticated, right?
Yeah, but only because I Google translated it.
No, I think if you broke it down into statements, it would have been easy.
Yes, I definitely should have followed your example more. But I think that we both took different approaches which worked for us for that time.
Mm-hmm.
But in the long term, we should have really, if we were going to do this for 3 months or 3 years, then we should have probably combined our two approaches a lot more.
Definitely.
Right? 3 weeks just isn't enough. We did ask Tag a little bit about his language learning experience. So let's see a little bit more about Tag and his polyglot. Well, he's a polyglot, so can you call it his polyglottedness?
Glottism?
Polyglottism?
One of
Let's
them.
listen to what he says. He's much more eloquent than us.
Tag, how did you learn Greek? Because you obviously speak fluent. People probably wouldn't.
Yes.
Yeah, you.
Well, I won't disappoint you, but it took me 3 years.
What?
Yeah, and
So
I was
it's
already.
just as difficult as they say.
It's really hard, and I mean, and it took me 3 years considering that I'm a polylingual linguist. I speak 6 languages before Greek. But the thing about Greek is so hard is that I speak Germanic languages and I speak Latin languages. So, for instance, English and German and Danish are Anglo-Saxon languages. They have similar roots, so it's easy for, if you speak English, easy to learn Dutch or to learn Danish, because similar words. And if you speak, for instance, French and Italian, then it's easy to learn Spanish or to learn Catalan. These are Latin languages, but Greek is completely different. It's really like learning Arabic or Chinese. It's completely new. Because, I mean, and also the alphabet is new. That's what's really weird.
Yeah. Yeah, because you were learning to speak it and to write it in actual Greek letters, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh
And that's really tough. That's tough.
Yeah.
But it's nice.
And helped you? What was did you take lessons? Did you just immerse yourself?
Well, I
Did you
quit.
watch movies?
No. I mean, the funny thing, I started lessons that I quit after 2 months because even Greek people didn't know what I was learning, like grammar and stuff like that. And then I ended up learning from the guy that had the how do you call it now in Kenya? The small shops where they sell everything. I know the word in Greek, periptero. But in Kenya also, like in every neighborhood, in every street, there's a little shop that sells everything from eggs to detergent and everything. How do you call them?
The kiosk.
Yeah, kiosk. But there's another word, isn't there? Remember, there's another word. Nuka, yeah. So that's the place where I really learned, by just going every day and speaking to the guy who became my friend.
Wow.
So it needs practice. You need practice.
Yeah.
Now, let's stop looking back, Akumu, because I think it's just gonna make us even more disappointed in ourselves. Let's look forward. What are we gonna take from this challenge and apply to our lives in general? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do differently?
Well, I need to continue learning Spanish, so I'm kind of like an intermediary Spanish speaker. Yeah. So I definitely pick up one of the strategies that you use to learn Greek for Spanish, like just continuing to be better at it. Because I actually lived in a Spanish speaking country. So I learned in an immersive environment. So what I want to do moving forward is just continue the subconscious mind crap that I was doing, listening to Spanish music while I'm working, while sleeping, maybe just watching a television show that's fully in Spanish. Unfortunately, Netflix is dubbing over Spanish movies these days, most of them. So, I mean, I used to use that a lot to just go back to the language and learn more. So, I'll just keep doing the same strategies. I won't do apps anymore because I think I'm beyond the apps.
For Spanish.
Yeah, for Spanish. I think I'll just continue with the music, movies, and maybe books, but doesn't work much.
But
I
at
think
least
movies is best, and soap operas. Yeah.
Well, there's definitely a lot of those. And at least you have a good base of Spanish. So you're not starting from scratch. If you can actually understand the majority of what's going on, then the new words and the new ideas come to complement that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Actually, movies and TV shows are the best. Yeah. Soap operas are, it's normal life going on. It's not like they give you they're not using very specialized vocabulary. So I find soap operas are the best for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
For you, what are you taking ahead?
Well, really, every time I'd come out from a language learning session, I would think, why am I doing this with Greek when I'm living in a country where I don't speak the language properly? I mean, I can communicate the basics in Swahili, but really I want to go back to the drawing board, maybe using Duolingo because,
Do
the
they have
nice.
Swahili?
Oh, they do.
What?
Yeah, they
They
have
didn't have
Swahili.
that years back. Huh?
No, well, they do. They
Wow.
definitely do have Swahili.
Mhm.
And, even learning a bit more of the grammar, maybe having like a Swahili only day in my household, maybe Wednesdays could be
Exactly.
voted for Swahili only. And just being more dedicated to actually learning the language because I know I can. I mean, I in 3 weeks, I know we said we didn't do that well, but
Yeah.
we did learn some Greek, and it's
Exactly.
possible to fit that around your schedule. And like we said, it really does develop more grey matter. I'm not saying I feel more intelligent, but I do feel better that we learned something new. We did it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Neuroplasticity. Yes.
Neuroplasticity all the way, that grey matter.
Exactly. But for Swahili, I think you're kind of in the wrong country. I mean, Kenya, we break down the Swahili so much. So what you'll see on Duolingo is not what you'll hear on the streets. So that's the challenge with Kenya.
Mhm.
I mean, if you want to learn perfect Swahili, Tanzania is the place.
Oh, I'm not looking for perfect Swahili. I'm just looking to be able to get off the road if I'm in an accident or order something in a shop without having to start off with a great phrase and then that's all my Swahili.
And
Just
then end
running
of
out.
thinking capacity.
Exactly, just run out of steam.
So, unfortunately and fortunately, no matter how you see it, that's it from us. Now we want to hear from you. What have you said yes to?
Have you said yes to trying to learn a new language?
Did you move to a new country and did you dive headfirst into the local lingo?
Have you got a story to tell?
Tell us about it on our Instagram at Yes Girls Podcast, Facebook the same, and Twitter the same. So at Yes Girls Podcast, one word.
Yeah, and if you want to suggest something that you think the Yes Girls should do, be, or learn for a future episode, send us your ideas. And if you want to share your expertise, your business, or passion with us through one of our episodes, just get in touch with us. As Akumu said, it's at Yes Girls Podcast on all the main social media that you could possibly think of.
And we'll also share behind the scenes photos, videos of our experiences doing, being, and learning so that you can get to see a little of what we put ourselves through, all in the name of being the Yes Girls. All for your entertainment.
And education.
Yes.
Let's
Hopefully.
build up that grey matter.
Exactly. So we want to say Efharisto to our producer, Dan Aseda, hosted by Sema Box at Baraza Media Labs. Efharisto is thank you, in case you're wondering.
Thank you for the translation.
And we want to extend our gratitude to the great Daskalos Tag, who judged our pitch.
Daskalos
To
means
Duolingo.
teacher.
Yes. To Duolingo, the great app. To Rosetta Stone, also an app. To Greek Pod 101, a podcast and YouTube channel. Yes. And to the many songs, films, YouTube videos we watched in our attempt to learn Greek. A mega thank you to our friends and family who support us in all our podcast related projects. And finally, to you, the Yes Girls and Boys, who we also encourage to say nai. That's yes in Greek. Believe it or not.
That doesn't make sense. Ne means yes.
Exactly. It's
But
weird.
that sounds like no.
Yeah.
No wonder we struggled with this. Well, we'll see you for our next episode.
When will that be?
Well, we'll be doing something or doing, being, or learning something new.
Okay. So that's it for the episode of
The
The Yes
Yes
Girls. Oh, yeah.